Hello, my young friends. This is a story which is part of the first flight textbook for CBSE class 10 students, and this is about a bus journey. Even though the textbook name is First Flight, I'll be doing a summary of this entire story, also pointing out specific instances and words from the story, and also talk about the themes and also discuss the important questions which can come from this particular story. It's a very nice story. About a little girl's obsession with traveling on the bus which comes to somewhere near her home. So the protagonist, the main person's name is Valli. Valliammai is the full name. उसका छोटा नाम है वल्ली, which is like her nickname. ये 8 साल की लड़की है. Okay, and she's obviously very curious about things. काफी उत्सुकता है कि दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है, और सबसे ज्यादा उत्सुकता और इंटरेस्ट उसका है जो बस उसके घर के पास आती है. हर फेवरेट पास टाइम मतलब जिस तरह से उसका दिन में समय कैसे बिताती थी, दैट वॉज टू स्टैंड एट द फ्रंट ऑफ हर हाउस वॉचिंग व्हाट विल हैपन इन द स्ट्रीट. जो गली में क्या क्या होता था उस सब का पूरा नजारा वह रोज देखती थी. उसके उम्र के कोई फ्रेंड्स नहीं थे, तो किसी के साथ खेलने के लिए कोई नहीं था उसको, तो इसलिए बाहर क्या होता था, बाहर की दुनिया में क्या होता था उसका नजारा वह हर रोज देखती थी. द मोस्ट फैसिनेटिंग थिंग ऑफ ऑल द थिंग्स दैट वल्ली डिड वाज द बस दैट ट्रैवल्ड बिटवीन हर विलेज एंड द नियरेस्ट टाउन. जो शहर जो उसके गांव के पास था और गांव के बीच में जो बस रोज जाती थी, उसको देखने में वल्ली का काफी इंटरेस्ट था. और इसके जो डिटेल्स हैं उस पर आप ध्यान जरूर रखिए, बिकॉज ये MCQs के रूप में आपके लिए आ सकते हैं. तो जस्ट रिमेंबर द स्पेसिफिक इंस्टेंसेस इन दिस पर्टिकुलर पैसेज. इट पास थ्रू हर स्ट्रीट. उसकी गली से हर घंटे में एक बारी वह बस जाती थी, यानी कि शहर और गांव के बीच का डिस्टेंस ज्यादा नहीं है. इट डज नॉट टेक दैट मच टाइम. दैट मीन्स एवरी आवर द बस कम्स back to the village, once going to the town and once coming back. The sight of the bus filled each time with a new set of passengers, and that जो लोग उसमें सवारी करते थे उनको देखकर वल्ली को काफी खुशी होती थी, एंड शी ऑलवेज एस्पायर्ड कि मैं भी इस तरह से बस में जाऊंगी. सो द बस इज ऑलमोस्ट लाइक अ पासपोर्ट टू ए न्यू वर्ल्ड, बिकॉज वल्ली की दुनिया क्या है, वल्ली की दुनिया सिर्फ उसका घर के बाहर का जो एरिया और जो गली, इसके बाहर की दुनिया वल्ली ने नहीं देखी है. तो वे चाहती हैं कि उस बस में सवारी करके शहर तक जाएं और गांव और शहर के बीच में जितने भी नजारे हैं उन सभी का आनंद ले. दैट इज व्हाट इज वल्लीज एस्पिरेशन, दिस लिटिल गर्ल हु इज 8 years old. एंड डे आफ्टर डे शी वॉच्ड द बस. ओके, हर रोज वो बस को देखती थी, एंड वल्ली वुड स्टेयर विस्टफुली. विस्टफुली का क्या मतलब है, लॉन्गिंगली. एक तरह से उसको तरसती थी कि मैं किसी ना किसी तरह से इस बस में सवारी करूं. ओके, एंड देयर फेसेस वुड किंडल. जो लोग उसमें से बस से उतरते थे, बस में चढ़ते थे, ओके, एंड देयर फेसेस वुड किंडल इन हर लॉन्गिंग्स. किंडल इज ऑलमोस्ट लाइक सेटिंग फायर. एक तरह से ग्लो चेहरे पर जो आना, एंड ड्रीम्स एंड होप. तो उसको लगता था कि जो लोग बाहर जाते हैं, दैट दे काइंड ऑफ आर एबल टू रियलाइज देयर ड्रीम्स, एंड दैट इज व्हाट वल्ली ऑल्सो वांट्स टू डू one fine day. If any of her friends, and this is an interesting part which again can come as an MCQ. So जो भी मैं passages का मैं बताऊं कि ये MCQs के रूप में आ सकते हैं, उसको आप एक मार्क कर लीजिए. If one of her friends happen to ride the bus, यानी कि बस पर सवारी करे, and try to describe the sights of the town to her. अगर कोई भी, हालांकि शुरू में लिखा है कि उसके कोई प्लेमेट्स नहीं थे, लेकिन यहां पर ऑथर कहते हैं कि अगर उसके कोई दोस्त ये बोले कि हम शहर में गए थे, हमने ये देखा वो देखा, सो वल्ली को एक तरह से जलन हो जाती थी, एक तरह से जेलसी हो जाती थी. एंड शी विल से इन इंग्लिश प्राउड, यानी कि तुम इस बात की का घमंड दिखा रहे हो कि तुमने शहर देखा है या शहर और गांव के बीच का नजारा देखा है. हालांकि उसको भी प्राउड शब्द का मतलब नहीं मालूम था, उसके दोस्तों को भी नहीं मालूम था, लेकिन उनको इस बात का अंदाजा हो जाता था कि वल्ली इज एक्सप्रेसिंग हर डिसअप्रूवल. वे अपनी नाखुशी का इजहार कर रही हैं कि मैं तुम्हारे इस तरह का जो वर्णन कर रही हो, ये जो पूरा तुमने देखा उसके बारे में बता रही हो, उससे मैं खुश नहीं हूं. स्लैंग एसेंशियली इज एन इनफॉर्मल वर्ड. ओके, इनफॉर्मल वर्ड जो दोस्तों के बीच में स्लैंग लैंग्वेज का इस्तेमाल होता है उसको स्लैंग कहा जाता है. लाइक फ्रेंड इज अ फॉर्मल वर्ड, पैल इज एन slang kind of a language. Okay. अब इन बातों पर आप ध्यान रखिए. द शहर 6 मील की दूरी पर था गांव से. ओके, 6 miles फ्रॉम हर हाउस, फ्रॉम हर विलेज. द फेयर वाज 30 पैसा वन वे, यानी कि गांव से शहर जाने के लिए 30 पैसे की टिकट लेनी पड़ती थी. ओके, एंड पूरा समय लगता था 45 मिनट, यानी कि 45 मिनट्स. ओके, इट वुड टेक ए टाइम ऑफ 45 मिनट्स टू ट्रैवल फ्रॉम द विलेज टू द टाउन, and it would cost 30 paisa for a ticket. Okay, and there was a time when tickets would be for 10 paise, 20 paise, 30 paise, 40 paise. Okay, so this is of that time. This meant that she could take, and she always wanted to, and she has been planning about it, that she could take the 1 o'clock afternoon bus. Okay, 1 o'clock afternoon bus, reach the town at 1:45, एंड वापस वो थोड़े से गैप के बाद वहां से चलेगी. सो 2:45 तक she could be back home. So that's the plan that she is making, that between 1 and 2:45 she could go and come back and return by the same bus. Okay, so every day she would do this mental calculation, and so if you get a question about the past time, you need to describe all these things. And then one day she decided to do that, to stop the bus and hop on to the bus. तो उसमें उसके बाद जो पूरी कहानी में जिस तरह से कंडक्टर इज वेरी सरप्राइज्ड एंड अम्यूज्ड एट this 8-year-old girl who is feeling very important, carrying the money to buy the ticket, is getting on to the bus. Okay, so therefore he calls her as madam. Why does he call her as madam? Because Valli actually takes herself seriously. She's behaving like an adult. Okay, एक बड़े औरत की तरह she is behaving, saying that I have the money to buy the ticket, and she is traveling on her own without the company of any of her parents or any relatives or any other grown up. So the conductor was a jolly sort. So conductor दूसरा किरदार है इस कहानी में. Okay, he says, please don't be angry with me, because he tries to help her to get in. My fine madam, here have a seat right up there in front. Everyone move aside, please make way for madam. Way for madam means जगह दीजिए उनको, अंदर भीतर आने दीजिए. So that's what she tries to do. It was the slack time of the day. Slack time मतलब दोपहर का समय, जब ज्यादा काम ना हो, ट्रैफिक भी कम हो, शहर में भी ज्यादा भीड़ भाड़ नहीं हो, तो that is known as the slack time. So she got onto the bus and sat down on an empty seat. And conductor पूछता है, क्या हम start करें? May we start now, madam? So it's almost kind of being very indulgent about this 8-year-old girl. It was a new bus, काफी नई बस थी, and gleaming white with some green stripes along the sides, and directly in front of Valli, above the windshield, there was a beautiful clock. The seats were soft and luxurious. So it also shows Valli's observations, that she's observing everything. So the author has kind of described the interior of the bus, because इस कहानी के प्रमुख किरदार वल्ली और बसी हैं. The story is about Valli and the bus, and in fact even in the title, Madam rides the bus, right? So those are the two most important parts of this story. So that's another thing which you need to keep in mind. Valli devoured everything with her eyes. Devoured means, devoured ko normally you use it in the sense of kha jana. But what he means here is that she's capturing everything with her eyes. She's kind of noting everything within the bus, because so far she has seen the bus only from the outside. ये पहली बारी हो रहा है कि वल्ली उस बस को अंदर से देख रही है. So for her it is like a world she always wanted to see. She wanted to explore the world outside through the inside of the bus. So for her, she's interested both in the inside of the bus and the outside world, right? So this is an important aspect. Please write it in your answers, which is why she's devouring everything inside the bus, everything she's looking at with a lot of interest, which is why the author has explained it in great detail, right? And then she decided that she is not able to kind of see very clearly, because काफी सारे especially in South India के जो buses जो गांवों में चलते हैं, there is also some kind of a canvas sheet which they put to cover the window. So that is kind of obstructing her vision. So she tries to stand up to be able to see the scenery outside, and suddenly somebody says you should not stand like that, sit down, because obviously she can get hurt if suddenly the driver applies the brake. So that is an elderly person, okay, who is obviously concerned about Valli. Okay, so he says there is, but she does not like being referred to as a child, because he says, listen child. So she says there is nobody here who is a child. Okay, so she is very firm about the fact, and she is very clear about the fact that मैंने 30 पैसे का पूरा ticket लिया है, so in that sense I should not be treated as a minor. So she says there is nobody here who is a child. I have paid my 30 paise like everyone else, right? And she says it haughtily. Haughtily means with a sense of pride, you know, almost arrogantly she says it. So if you get an MCQ 1 mark question as to, with a passage as to why did Valli reply haughtily to the elderly person, you need to be able to answer it saying that she did not like the fact that she was being referred to as a child, that she had paid her 30 paise for the ticket like everyone else, so she wanted to be treated like anyone else and not be looked down upon and dismissed as a minor, as a child. The conductor chimed in. Now chimed in is an interesting verb. Chimed in is almost like, you know, कि conversation हो रहा है, उसके बीच में घुस गया, again in a slightly comical and an indulgent manner. उसको मजा आ रहा है, you know, ये छोटी लड़की का मजाक उड़ाने के लिए. Oh sir, but this is a very grown up madam. So he's being sarcastic. Do you think a mere girl would pay her own fare and travel to the city all alone? कि खुद अकेली लड़की 8 साल की अपना टिकट खुद खरीद के शहर अकेली जाएगी. So obviously she is a grown up person, not a child. And Valli does not like that sarcasm, because उसको समझ में आ जाता है कि मेरा मजाक उड़ाने की कोशिश कर रहा है कंडक्टर, और sarcastically, I am not a madam. So she does not like being referred to as a ma'am. He says, please remember that, and you have not yet given me my ticket. तुमने पैसे तो ले लिए लेकिन टिकट नहीं दिया है, जैसे काफी कंडक्टर करते हैं. I will remember, mimicking her tone yet another way. So you need to also remember different ways in which conductor pokes fun at her, is being indulgent with her, is almost trying to make fun of her. तो इन सभी बातों का आप एक-एक पॉइंट में लिख लीजिए points, so that you are able to reproduce it in the examination. And he says he mimics her, you know, he talks like her. I will remember, you know, it's almost like the way Valli speaks. Everyone laughed, and gradually Valli too joined in the laughter. तो उसको भी हंसी आ जाते हैं. She also laughs. The conductor punched a ticket and handed it to her. Just sit back and make yourself comfortable. Why should you stand when you have paid for a seat? तो the conductor tries to be logical. तुमने 30 पैसे देकर एक सीट के लिए टिकट ली है, तो खड़े होने की क्या जरूरत है? आराम से बैठ के बाहर का नजारा देखो. So she says, because I want to. Okay. And she stands up again. But if you stand on the seat, because she does not like being treated as a child, but if you stand on the seat, you may fall and hurt yourself when the bus makes a sharp turn, it hits a bump. Okay. That's why we want you to sit down, child. I am not a child, I tell you, she said irritably. I'm 8 years old. So she thinks being 8 years old is not being a child, right? So she insists on not being treated as a child. Of course, how stupid of me. 8 years, my. So again, he's kind of making fun. The bus stopped, some new passengers got in, there were other passengers, and then an elderly lady comes in, and this lady, Valli does not like the way she looks. Okay. She was having very long earlobes, earrings in it. You know, this is the way many elderly women in Tamil Nadu look like, especially in the rural areas. And she was having beetle juice, pan ka, juice ka, this thing, that was all around her lips. And that is something which Valli did not like. And she's again asked, and she says curtly, I am traveling alone and I've got a ticket too. Curtly again means haughtily pehle tha, is bari curtly, both referring to being a little rude and showing a sense of displeasure. Usko pasand nahi aata hai. And she's on the way. Conductor again आता है elderly lady को बताने के लिए कि ये शहर को जा रही हैं अकेले 30 पैसे की टिकट लेकर. So Valli says, oh, why don't you mind your own business? Valli does not like the conductor making fun of her. So she tells him to mind his own business, but she laughed also at the same time, because usko maza bhi aa raha tha ki that she was being the center of all attention. But the old woman went on with her drivel. Drivel means silly, nonsensical kind of talk. And she asked, is it proper for such a young person to travel all alone? Do you know where you are going to in town? What is the street? What is the house number? So she is a concerned elderly person who is worried that such a small girl, 8 years old, is traveling all alone in the bus all the way to the town. So she said, you do not bother about me, I can take care of myself. And she ends the conversation by starting to looking out, saying that I am not interested in talking to anyone, especially you. ये हो गई उसकी पहली जर्नी की कहानी. And then she kind of after she had enough money saved, her next problem was how to slip out of the house without her mother's knowledge. But she managed this without difficulty, because every day after lunch, her mother would sleep between 1 and 4. So that was the opportune time for Valli to slip out. And she used this 3 hours for her excursions. This was like a trip, a journey from the village to the town and come back using the same bus. Okay. And the bus rolled on now, and everything you remember, please note that it is all from an 8-year-old, a small girl's perspective, who does not think that she is a young girl, right? Who does not think she's a child, right? So sometimes the bus seemed to be on the point of gobbling up another vehicle. So you see, it's all because from a small girl's perspective, the bus is a huge vehicle. So the way she sees it, it's almost like, दूसरे जो गाड़ी को खा जाएगा, no? So it's almost, as I said, the imagination of a small girl, right? Another vehicle that was coming towards them, or a pedestrian crossing the road, but it would kind of leave all obstacles behind. And then she saw a cow, a young cow, tail high in the air, running very fast in the middle of the road, and the driver honking कि ताकि वो गाय को भगा सके, ताकि वो बस का रास्ता साफ हो. All that she sees. So those are the sights that she sees on the way. And all this she finds very funny. Obviously, a 8-year-old girl, she finds all this very funny. Hey girl, haven't you laughed enough? Called the conductor. Better save some for tomorrow. So the conductor also अब तक उसको जान गया होता है. At last the cow moved away from the road, and then it went away, and then she saw the shops, the clothes and the merchandise and the big crowds, everything, right? And everyone got off the bus. And then, aren't you getting off? This is as far as your 30 paisa. She says, no, I'm going back in the same bus. Right. I just felt like having a bus ride. That's all. Okay. Don't you want to have a look at the sights in the town? She says, all by myself. No, I would be very afraid. So she does not want to explore the world. Her world view is from looking out of the bus. So the conductor is friendly. He says, मैं तुम्हारे लिए I'll get you a cold drink. She says, no, I don't want to do that. I don't have enough money. Just give me my ticket. So she's carrying only that much money with which she can buy the ticket. The conductor offers to buy a treat, but the girl is very vigilant. She says, no, I will not. So that's what she's very firm about. So conductor says, won't your mother be looking for you? No, no one will be looking for me. So it also shows a slightly lonely kind of existence as far as Valli is concerned. For Valli, this is the world, and the bus is the vehicle that takes her in her exploration of the world outside the street where her house is located in the village. So in that sense, it's an important story, an important aspect, especially from the point of view of a girl child, right? The bus started. Valli wasn't bored. She was kind of showing the same excitement in seeing whatever was happening. And then she asked the conductor, isn't that the same cow that ran in front of her bus on her trip to the town? So by now she's kind of conversing with the conductor. And then, but now what had happened was, on the way back, the cow had kind of collapsed, right? What had been a lovable, beautiful creature just a little while ago, because जिसकी वजह से उसको काफी हंसी भी आई थी, had now lost his charm in his life and looked so horrible, so frightening as it lay there, legs spread eagled, a fixed stare in his lifeless eyes, blood all over. So an accident had occurred and the cow had been hit by a vehicle. So it was almost looking like it would die. It was badly injured, right? And that kind of upset Valli. The memory of the dead cow haunted her and dampened her enthusiasm. Uska pura utsaah kam ho gaya. She no longer wanted to look out of the window, because so far everything was very positive. But now she had seen death, near death. She may not understand death, but something which upset her deeply. So now she no longer wanted to see the scenery outside the window. Something had gone wrong, and this is not what she expected. जिस तरह का imagination उसका था, ये उस imagination में fit नहीं हो रहा था. And so the bus reached back home, and she stretched herself. I hope to see you again whenever you feel like a bus ride. she says, I hope to see you again. She says, whenever you sing, join and don't forget to bring your fare. And she laughed. And there one of the other ladies is also talking, and where have you been, asked her aunt, and she just smiled and went inside. And so many things, the mother said, so many things in our midst and in the world outside, how can we possibly know about everything? And even when we know about something, we often can't understand it completely. So it's a very kind of a very philosophical sentence saying कि जो दुनिया में होता है उसके बारे में पूरी तरह से समझना मुश्किल है. Okay, so Valli says, I was just agreeing with what you just now said, happening without a knowledge. So she is actually feeling amused that the mother has no clue to what her 8-year-old daughter has been for the last 2 to 3 hours के बीच में. Whatever has happened, the mother is completely clueless to what had happened. And the aunt says, such a chit of a girl. Chit of a girl means छोटी सी तेज तर्रार सी लड़की है. Look how she pokes her nose into her conversation. Pokes her nose means जो दो लोग बात कर रहे हैं उसमें अपनी नाक डालना, and as though she is a grown up lady. Now this is very interesting. The aunt referring to her as a grown-up lady, that she's behaving like a grown-up lady, and that's precisely how Valli was trying to behave even on the bus. That she was trying to convince everybody that she is a grown-up person, while the lady, the aunt who has come, herself convinced that she's behaving like a grown-up person. Valli smiled to herself. She didn't want them to understand her smile, but then there wasn't much chance of that was there, because they had no clue as to what really had happened. Okay, so now let's look at some of the questions which have come. For instance, this one which came in 2019. What was the most fascinating thing that Valli saw on the street? You have to talk about the bus which took so much time to travel to the town. What was the distance, what was the fare, and how much time it took to go between the village and the town. And that is something which Valli was fascinated by. How did Valli save money for her first bus journey? Now this is important. She resisted the temptation to buy balloons and toys, did not enjoy the merry round in the village fair, and thereby she collected the amount which she needed to travel on that bus. So that is an important aspect that you need to know. Okay. How did Valli react when she saw the dead cow by the roadside? She became sad. She no longer was enthusiastic to look outside the window. She became very negative, and she no longer wanted to enjoy the scenery outside the window. The same cow which had made her laugh now made her very sad. So please point out the contrast. Why did Valli stand up on the seat? I have explained all this to you. If you get a long format kind of a question, Valli showed extraordinary courage in taking a bus journey all alone. Explain that in the context of Valli's character. You know, how does this ability and courage to fulfill one's dream, because this was her dream and she managed to fulfill her dream. So you need to talk about how she saved the money, how she kind of thought between 1 and 4 is the window when she can actually step out. How did she deal with the people inside the bus who were not taking her very seriously, and she displays extraordinary courage in actually completing the journey to the town and back to her home. Okay, so you need to when you're writing it, please remember that you write from the point of view of Valli. If you get a question like, explain how would you kind of deal with it. So please remember that Valli's perspective is very important, right? For instance, if you get a question, once we decide, this came in 2017, once we decide to achieve something, so many difficulties come in our way. With focused attention, we can make that achievement. How did Valli succeed in fulfilling her desire in riding a bus? So they are giving a covering sentence, but the specific question is about Valli. So the facts have to be about Valli, which is why it's very important for you to read the story again, mark the keywords that I have pointed out so that you are able to understand, articulate it well. How did Valli plan her bus ride? Again, it's something which you need to know the facts of the story so that you are able to point it out. So that brings us to the end of this explanation video on Madam Rides a Bus, a fascinating and a very simple story. So keep it simple, just note down the facts and you should be good enough to deal with any long format or any MCQs from this particular story. Thank you very much for watching.